Welcome to this module titled Higher Level Questioning and Extensions, brought to you by Region 11 Educational Service Center. In this presentation, the teacher will design questions to help students develop critical and higher order cognitive skills. For today's presentation, you'll need a copy of Teach Like a Champion 2.0 by Doug Lemov. At the conclusion of this course, you'll have an opportunity to demonstrate your understanding of the stated learning objective by participating in a demonstration lab sponsored by Region 11 Certification Team. During the demonstration lab, you'll present a 10-minute mini-lesson in which you model high-level questions and extensions. You'll receive feedback based on the proficiency rubric you see on the screen. To earn credit for this course, participants must score at the proficient or master's level. So, grab a beverage of your choice, a copy of the resources, and let's get started on the path to asking better questions. There are three things that make a great question. Great questions are pre-planned, asked at the appropriate level of rigor. In other words, questions are asked at a level at which you want students to process them. Finally, great questions are extended when necessary to promote deeper levels of student thinking. This slide contains some pointers to consider when planning for the questions you ask students. The purpose of the question and method of response you want from students are interconnected. If the purpose of the question is to assess the whole class's understanding of a topic, then the method of response must include responses from the entire class. However, if you want to simply check to see if the class is following along with the set of instructions, you could simply ask one student to repeat the instructions to gauge your understanding. The timing of questions is critical because questioning generally serves as a break in direct instruction and provides a chance for students to process information. This type of questioning break should occur at minimum every 10 minutes. We should also consider how to scaffold questions for students that have unique learning needs. Asking questions at the correct rigor or cognitive level is another part of planning that deserves special attention. At this time, please pause this video and locate your Canvas resources for this module. Open up the article about Bloom's taxonomy and connect how Benjamin Bloom's levels of questioning helped promote higher levels of thinking. Check out these question stems that go along with Bloom's taxonomy. Please pause this video and locate Bloom's taxonomy question stems that will help you generate questions for your mini lesson. There's something called process standards that also help guide teachers' creation of questions. They're part of the TEKS and exist for all subjects and grade levels. Ultimately, they describe how students are expected to demonstrate knowledge of the standards. They help us determine the level of Bloom's that we should be designing questions for. Let's look at this example from 4th grade mathematics. The process standard tells us what students need to be able to do with the readiness standard. So, in Process Standard 4.1a, students need to be able to apply mathematics to problems that arise in everyday life. We could connect this to the Readiness Standard 4.5d, which requires students to solve whole number problems with rectangles concerning perimeter and area. Let's see if we could connect this to Bloom's taxonomy. Thinking about the process and readiness standard on the previous slide, we saw the word apply in the process standard. Thus, a math teacher should plan to ask questions at the application level and have students use their understanding of perimeter and area to apply their knowledge to a new real-world situation. Here we have some questions that we could ask with the process and readiness standard. Some examples are, how might a construction worker use perimeter as a part of their job? Can you think of a time you could use perimeter outside of school? What mathematical concept would you also use to determine how much fencing to buy for your yard? Pause the video and see if you could come up with a few more questions on your own. Here's another example from 4th grade math. The process standard tells us that students need to create and use representations to organize, record, and communicate mathematic ideas. And the supporting standard tells us that students must identify points, lines, line segments, rays, angles, and perpendicular and parallel lines. Wow. Thinking about Bloom's taxonomy pyramid we've seen, we would plan to ask questions at the create level as seen in the process standard. So here are a few questions at the create level we can ask to help students process the supporting standard. Using visual representations, please explain parallel and perpendicular lines to your partner. Another question is, how could you use visuals to explain the differences in line segments and arrays? Pause the video now and try practicing coming up with a few of your own questions. Even with thorough planning, sometimes our students simply don't answer the way we hope for. It's good to know that there are several techniques that we can use to push students further in their thinking. We'll explore these in our next slide, but for now, please pause the video and read pages 108 to 117 in Teach Like a Champion. In summary, there are 6 basic ways we could stretch students' responses to lead them to think at higher levels. First, you ask your pre-planned questions, and then the student or students respond. The response is basic, or you're wanting them to delve a bit deeper, we could use one of the 6 stretch it strategies shown on this slide. Getting students to explain why or how they know, having them answer in a different way or with a better word, asking to provide evidence, requiring them to integrate a related skill or applying the skill in a new setting are all ways to stretch student responses to be more detailed and academic. For example, if a student completes a math problem without showing any work, we can ask students to stretch it by asking students how or why their answer is correct. The next few slides will provide an opportunity to review and practice the skills we've gone over thus far. Alright, so let's take a moment to review the information we've discussed. First, what's the relationship between purpose and method of response? Second, how often should you stop and ask a question? Finally, for which students might you need to scaffold questions? Pause now to answer these questions to review for understanding. Remember, the purpose and methods of response are closely related. Methods of response need to align with the overall purpose of asking the question. Timing of the question is critical because questioning provides an opportunity to have a break in direct instruction and allows the students to process the information before moving on. A good rule of thumb is to pause for questioning every 10 minutes. Students with unique learning needs, such as gifted and talented students or English language learners, will need scaffolded questions so they could process the information at an appropriate developmental level. Now that we've reviewed our learning, let's practice the skill of questioning. The goal here is to come up with 3 questions based on the 4th grade science standards in this slide. The process standard requires students to make informed choices about the conservation of natural resources, and the readiness standard requires students to identify and classify Earth's renewable and non-renewable sources. Pause the video now and see if you could create 3 questions based on this content. Nice work! Take a moment to review the stretch it techniques before we move on to the scenarios in the upcoming slides. Here's our scenario. The teacher asks, "What is this shape?" The student responds, "Diamond." Pause and consider which stretch it technique or techniques would help the student elaborate on their response. This slide contains one more scenario that would occur after reading The Tortoise and the Hare. The teacher asks, "What's the moral of the story?" The student responds, "Slow and steady win the race." Again, pause and consider how the teacher could get the student to stretch their response to make deeper connections. Now that you've learned how to refine questioning techniques, let's review the proficiency rubric one more time to see what you need for your upcoming demonstration. During the demonstration lab, you'll present a 10-minute mini lesson in which you model asking questions at the application level or higher. You'll receive feedback based on the proficiency rubric you see on the screen. To earn credit for this course, participants must score at the proficient or master's level. To score at the proficient level, the teacher must introduce a new concept or skill, then ask application level or higher questions that require students to respond. the teacher must attempt to use a stretch strategy to extend student thinking. To earn the master's level, the teacher must ask questions at the analysis level or higher and successfully use the stretch strategies to extend students' thinking. Here are some helpful tips as you prepare for your mini lesson. First, spend up to the first 3 minutes introducing a new concept or skill. Next, ask a question. Remember, it should be at the application level or higher. Don't forget to consider purpose and response, rigor, and stretch it. You might spend the next 2 minutes scaffolding new information about the concept or skill. If you introduced a broad concept, you might use this time to break it down into concrete details. Again, pause and ask a question. Try asking at a different level of Bloom's and having the student respond in a different way. Don't forget to stretch it. At last, following that, you'll close the lesson. The closure is a time when you wrap up a lesson plan and help students organize the information in a meaningful context in their minds. This helps students better understand what they have learned and provides a way in which they can apply it to the world around them. A strong closure can help students better retain information beyond the immediate learning environment. Thanks for watching this course module titled Higher Level Questioning and Extensions. Good luck, and feel free to review this video at any time as you prepare for your upcoming mini lesson. Today's material referenced the book Teach Like a Champion 2.0 by Doug Lemov and used downloaded images from Pixabay.